SkySports NFL analyst Jeff Reinebold. Coach, good to see you, my friend. I always appreciate the time, and we're going to look, well, we look back a little bit, but the call. Go ahead, Coach. What do you got? What do you got?
Well, it's just great to see you, and it's great to see you in some warm weather, my man.
Yeah, how is it over there in London? What's going on?
It's not warm. I'm just going to say we're not Saskatchewan cold, but it's not very warm.
Well, it looks beautiful. I know everybody's in the holiday spirit, except for the officials. They're not in a gift-giving mood in the Kansas City-Buffalo game. Your take, if you don't mind, on the Kadarius Toney offside, which cost the Chiefs the win.
Okay, to paraphrase my man Muhammad Ali, this may shock and amaze you, but I'm actually going to say I agree with the officials on this one. Right now, I know there's guys in striped shirts all over Canada falling out their chairs right now when they heard that. But here's the thing: when you're an offensive lineman, right, for example, a tackle, and they want to get off the ball as far as they can because it helps them, in pass protection. The official typically will come to you or go to the sideline and say, "Hey, coach, your right tackle's, too deep. You got to move them up or whatever." All right. And the same thing happens with your punt team because it's the same issue. They need space away from the rushers so that they can sort out the rush. However, when you're a wideout, right, you have the opportunity to ask the judge on the side whether you're good or not good. And then he will tell you yes or no. But it's not a courtesy that's extended every time to the sidelines that, "Oh, coach, your wideout didn't align correctly." And it wasn't Rod, that was not the only time that the Chiefs lined up. There were a couple times in the game they didn't have enough guys on the line of scrimmage, right? So Kadarius Toney was so blatantly misaligned. And what's shocking about it is, when you think about it, this is a junior high issue, right? This is not a NFL, it shouldn't be a pro football issue. You look to the side judge, you get your clearance. Now, there was not a tight end in the game, so all Kadarius needed to do was look across the formation, and he's looking inside at the ball. And notice that the other receiver who's supposed to be on the line of scrimmage and is somehow further back than you. You would think that it would dawn on him that maybe he's got an issue. But again, that's why coaches, go crazy, because those kinds of mistakes, that took away a play. If that play had been live and, Kelsey caught the ball and lateraled it back and they scored the touchdown and they won the game, that thing would have been played 100 times between now and tomorrow. But because of a guy couldn't execute the simplest thing, which is line up correctly, it cost his football team.
I was just going to ask you, why does this keep happening? But you kind of explain it. It's what drives coaches crazy, because you can't explain a brain fart like that. But I'll put it go ahead.
No, I think here's one of the things that my experience in years and years and years in this game. There's a tendency for players to say, "I got you, coach. I got you. No problem. I got you. I'll get it on game day." And it's really hard for coaches to continue to drive and demand and do, all the little things. Like the best football coach I've ever been around was Dick Vermeil, and he was intense on the little things. Because if you take care of the little things, the big things typically will take care of themselves. Now, let's deal with a guy like Kadarius Toney. Drafted extremely high. Why is he in Kansas City? Because they got tired of his act in New York, right? And so when you look at the drops that he's had, where are they? Because he's physically not able to perform the task? No. It's because his fundamentals are so lacking. And what are fundamentals? Fundamentals typically are attention to detail, right? Paying attention, doing the right thing over and over and over until it's just ingrained in you. But, again, that's not that guy. And if he doesn't get it fixed, he's probably going to be out of Kansas City pretty soon, too.
Yeah, I could talk about this with you all day. I love it, but we probably should move on to various other things. I mean, everybody's talking about the Vikings-Raiders game. 3-0 mini, and how embarrassing that is for the NFL. How did you feel? I would have hated to pay money for that.
Well, you look at both those teams, they're on backup quarterbacks. And, Rod, it's so difficult with a backup. And now, Minnesota's on their third. And then you got to give the defensive coaches a little bit of credit in the thing, too. I think Brian Flores has done a great job in Minnesota. And he's probably resurrected his career up there. When he flamed out with the Dolphins and then sued the NFL over race discrimination, and he went up there quietly and just went to work and has built a great defense in Minnesota. They do a great job of scheming. That being said, it was a 3-0 football game, and you would think guys that are the most skilled in the world at what they do and getting paid extremely well could get the ball in the end zone at least one time, but they weren't able to do it, and it was a hard thing to watch.
The Cowboys. I've been thinking all week what you said about the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy, because we all have seen him make some kind of dumb decisions in game calling, but he has done a great job with Dak Prescott. I guess that was a pretty sound shellacking of a good team last night, right? Everything you said about the Cowboys was true.
I really thought the Cowboys played extremely well. Now, again, we'll find out a little bit more about the Cowboys this week when they got to go up to Buffalo and play outdoors in what should be 8 degrees weather and, all of that, because the Cowboys at home are really, really special. And again, if you think about this AFC race, Rod, it's going to come down, I really believe this, to who's going to get home field advantage through the playoffs, because, Miami plays much better in South Florida than they would in Baltimore. And, Baltimore is the kind of team, as we saw last night, they can slog it out with you and just, win ugly on, whether it's a special teams play like last night or whatever. And then the Cowboys are really, really good at home. I mean, really good at home. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how that thing sorts itself out. But Dak Prescott is playing as good as he's ever played. Obviously, his connection with CeeDee Lamb is really special. But the guy that I think really goes under the radar and really plays well is that tight end Ferguson. When the Cowboys did something last year, Rod, that's not typical of them. One of the key things with older players is, and especially if they're star players, it's hard to get rid of them because you have an emotional tie to them and you think, they can still do it. But the really good organizations typically know when to move on from a guy. Well, they moved on from 2 guys last year. They moved on from Zeke and they moved on from Dalton Schultz. And both of those guys were established stars at their position and, good Cowboys, Jerry's guys, right? Well, they took a chance on Pollard and Dowdell, and those guys have played out for them. And then this Ferguson kid, nobody misses Dalton Schultz right now, and that's the way it should be in the National Football League.
Yeah, Ferguson was awesome last night. I'm dying to ask you this and get your opinion. I was listening to ESPN radio this morning, running, and they talked about Zach Wilson and the great game he had for the Jets and how nobody saw it coming. And Chris Canty said, he goes, I can show you 3 years of games that he's not that guy we saw yesterday. And that ticked me off because as an addiction recovery coach, mental health coach like I am, I say to people, I look at you at your best. Let's get you at the best. Do you, coach, judge the players by their best moments or their worst moments? And let's use Zach Wilson as a great example.
Well, it's a little of both. Obviously, you are what you put on tape, to quote Bill Parcells. But I think one of the things you got to understand is you're not drafted, the second player picked in the draft, because you don't have the physical ability, right? I mean, they measured the kid, they weighed the kid, they looked at hours and hours of film, they did the psychological studies, they did all the things, and the Jets weren't the only team that felt that strong about the kid. Now, what has happened to him since he has come to New York? It's been a series of offensive coordinators, a series of offensive linemen. The pressures in New York are unique in sport. And so he's kind of, lost his way. Now, what you saw yesterday is what everybody had hoped for when they drafted the kid. And he's not out of the woods yet, Rod, but I do subscribe to what you say. He's put it on tape now that he can do it. Now, what do you need to do to unlock him so that he can do it on a consistent basis?
Yeah, and I'm just going to keep going here because another guy, I just love Baker Mayfield because he's kind of what I like to think I am. You'd need to put a bullet in that guy before Baker stops or gives up. You know what I mean? And now they're on the way to winning the NFC South for a third straight year. Not all with him at quarterback, but I just love me some Baker Mayfield. Your take on that race, that turtle race in that division?
Baker Mayfield reminds me of a basketball player that played at BYU and then went on and played for the Celtics. And he then became I think he was in the Celtics organization a long, long time. His name's Danny Ainge. And Danny Ainge was that scrappy 6'1", guy that just found a way. And you loved him on your team, but you hated playing against him because he was, he just had that chip on his shoulder, that everything the Baker's got. And I thought yesterday there were times in that game where a lesser competitor would have folded his tent. And I give Baker credit. It's not always beautiful with Baker, right? He's going to make some mistakes. He's going to do some things. But you get down around the goal line, and the one play that I really remember from that game as I watched it, Rod, is he found his way into the end zone on a short yardage play, and it wasn't easy getting in there. And he's a tough sucker, and he's a competitor. And if who's going to win that division, I can't tell you because New Orleans still has a chance, Atlanta still has a chance, Tampa still has a chance. But I'm going to tell you something. If I'm going down, I want to go down with a guy like that.
Absolutely. And I just look at the way organizations can ruin good players and coaches too. But look what Cleveland, they try to hang it on Baker. Carolina, look at those places. It's not the quarterback's fault. So any last thoughts, Coach? Even tonight, Dolphins, Titans, how ugly is he going to be here in Miami?
No, I think that's going to be an interesting one to watch because the Titans can still run the ball enough. And now, certainly Miami should win. But I'm really anxious to watch Will Levis play because there's a guy that's a rookie that if you're a Tennessee Titan fan, you got to feel pretty good about, what's going to happen and what's going to transpire in the future because, getting the draft pick to pay dividends as early as Will Levis is paying dividends is, I think, a real positive for the Titan organization. For the Dolphins, they just got to keep their head down and keep work. Get 1-0 this week and then get 1-0 next week because they need. I really, really strongly believe this. They need to be home for the playoffs. They need the South Florida weather. They need that fast track in Hard Rock Stadium. And so if they do that, they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. And the Super Bowl is in Las Vegas? That'd be their kind of weather for sure. So, yeah, they're a finesse team. There's no doubt. Coach, thanks for this. Appreciate you. Is there any way that our audience can watch your stuff over there on Sky Sports?
Yeah, you can. Obviously, I'm not into all the streaming and all that other stuff, but I know there's technology that you can get Sky Sports NFL, and then certainly we do a podcast, or actually a series of podcasts every week, the Jeff Reinebold Show, and you can follow us on Twitter at Jeff_Reinebold for any of this stuff. And I appreciate it, Rod. It's always great to do this. We'll see you next Monday, and we're going to be 1 week closer. There's only 2 months till the Super Bowl, my man.
How about that?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Coach, you're the best there is. Thanks for the time. Appreciate you. Coach Reinebold from Sky Sports over in London, England, joining us talking 4-down ball.